Right, ladies and gents, shuffling on to our next topic, which is a fun one and a little bit of an interesting speculation. So, obviously, we've just had They Live getting a reboot / sequel. Well, what if The Thing had a sequel? Well, The Thing prequel director shared his VFX regrets. No shit. And reveals the premise of a scrap sequel. So they were actually planning a sequel idea.
Why?
So, obviously, for those that don't know, The Thing, there's two movies called The Thing. One is a prequel, one is the original, The Thing. Funnily enough, we're talking
one is
about
John Carpenter's The Thing, and one isn't. That's the way I say
it. Yeah. And one of the major things about The Thing is its criminal use of CGI over actual practical effects, because they actually had practical effects and they chose to CGI over the top.
Well, wasn't this the studio that forced it upon him or something like that?
It was. That was certainly was the narrative at the time.
Yeah, that was what was stated. But that's the story about this movie. If you watch it, it's not actually that bad. I mean, it is basically The Thing anyway. It's a little bit interesting. They sort of expand a little bit here and there.
Can I say what's the one problem with that movie? Because it's the prequel, and everyone knows that the original Thing, it begins with them going to this Norwegian camp where everyone has already been destroyed, and then they bring back what had basically the problem from the Norwegian camp. And the prequel was basically, well, what happened at the Norwegian camp. The idea was that that movie would end exactly where the original Thing or Carpenter's Thing begins, which happened. So that was all good and well. And you're right, that movie isn't too bad. It has one problem with it, and one only, which I feel destroys the entire movie and its authenticity. Because, again, it's supposed to be a Norwegian team, and they actually have like a really good crop of Norwegian actors. So it's really authentic and everything like that. But because it's an American movie and it has to be accessible for an American audience, they had an American team visit the base, forcing all the Norwegians to speak English to be accessible for an international audience, the whole thing. To me, that is honestly what destroys the movie, because it just destroys immersion. That, oh yeah, this happened, but of course it was the American team right there on that one day, which would never ever happen otherwise.
Yeah,
I think that's the big problem with that movie. It should have been like an all Norwegian language thing.
Well, the thing is, it doesn't even have to be in. You could just have them speak in English in their Norwegian accent.
That actually would have been
as if they're speaking Norwegian to one another. This is what people don't understand.
Yeah, that would also have been better. Either you have the Norwegian cast that you have and have them speak English, or you cast Americans and have them speak with a slightly accent to indicate that this is supposed to be Norwegian. That would have worked too. The one approach which I just felt, man, this completely ruins everything. When you have someone who are Norwegian and then you just send Americans to the base just to force them into speaking English for the duration of the movie. To me, that destroyed the whole movie.
Yeah, no, well, especially from your perspective, it's good to get it. Yeah. But let's take a look. So obviously, it's been 12 years since. Do you want to? Can you say this name for me, please, mate?
Well, it's actually Dutch, but it's Mattis van Heiningen.
There you go. Well, look, you're going to do a better job than I am. Sorry. Prequel to John Carpenter's The Thing was released, and for the most part, the movie has largely been forgotten. I disagree. A lot of people still talk about it, still like it. Or discuss the CG monstrosity that it is, and they say here, the visual effects over practical ones. Now,
I will say that amongst the nerd community, The Thing is one of the more highly regarded films. Like there isn't maybe a day, if not definitely a week, that goes by that it doesn't get mentioned somewhere.
Yeah, this is what I mean. Like, it's not actually been that forgotten. People do.
No. In fact, they've been doing it's been re-released in theaters for the last couple of years here. They've been showing it over and over and over again because it keeps doing well in theaters for the re-release.
Well,
in fact, it was such a big deal that when they mucked up the print in one, people let them know and they fixed it.
Yeah. Well, I think they're talking about the prequel being largely forgotten, but I still don't.
Oh, in that case, totally, yeah.
No, I still don't think it's been that forgotten though, because people, whenever you talk about the thing.
prequel, I would say. I mean, that got zero cultural footprint.
No, they honestly, it still comes up. Both of them come up again, mainly because of its the sort of, I guess, production issues. Whenever it's come up to me, whenever I'm talking to people about it, that's always popped up. But anyway, whatever. Talking to Sci-Fi Wire, the director shared new details about where he would have hoped to take the sequel, which is interesting. So they said, we fantasized about a sequel. Kate would escape and would be picked up at sea. So the prequel would have a sequel that's not related to the sequel already. That doesn't make sense. But anyway, and tries to warn the world at an oil platform near the South Pole. The monster would break loose on the rig. I liked the oil rig mayhem idea. Look, that's a good idea, but how does that align to the first one? What? It doesn't make any sense, does it? No? Anyone want to jump in on this? Am I speaking to myself?
Kate, I think that's one of the American characters in the prequel.
Yeah, it's her.
Yeah.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, that's what
It's
I mean.
The prequel,
yeah.
But the sequel to the prequel.
So it'd be kind of like a spin-off role kind of thing, I guess.
Something that takes place at the exact same time as the original movie with Kurt Russell. So this is kind of like, yeah, okay, while this happens, she's trying to escape and warn people in the oil platform or something.
It's a terrible idea. Awful idea. I like the fact, like, on an oil rig, that could be good fun. But terrible idea nonetheless. And anyway, so he acknowledges the movie, he basically says that the movie wasn't what people wanted. So he says the Carpenter version was so good and a lot of fans were almost offended by the prequel and didn't see the necessity for a follow-up. But now I fully understand that it was a bit early. Interesting. And now talks about the CGI. He says, I know this is a debated topic, but looking back, we were caught in a cross zone where animatronics were old-fashioned and the CGI wasn't good enough. We made the wrong decision to do it in post-production when it came to making the monster designs in the computer. I regret that now. Better character development, less CGI, more paranoia between the characters. The thing is about not being able to trust anybody. That could have been explored further. That's what he would have changed. So this doesn't actually sound like he was the studio mandated it, does it?
That could have been an excuse that they hid behind at the time. Because I remember that is what they said at the time. But just because they said it doesn't mean it's true.
You want my guess?
Go on.
Because when this movie came out, malls were still a thing. And at least somewhat. And back then, that's when they used to pull a lot of people into these test screenings. And they probably grabbed a bunch of teenagers. Like in that 15, 16, 17, 18, 19 range. Who either were completely had no idea what the original one was or anything like that. And guess what? They had about probably a third of them go, the special effects look weird.
Yeah.
And then they fucking panicked because they're like, oh no, kids can't handle anything that's not CGI now. That would be my guess is what happened.
Yeah, I can believe
that sounds more plausible than I'd like to admit.
Yeah. Yeah, I can believe that. Fun times, though. Fun times. I do not want to see any more of the things. I'm good. I think the original thing stands up. Absolutely brilliant film. Especially the VFX. The story about those VFX are quite interesting. Does anyone know the story about the original Thing VFX?
Some of it.
I do not.
Well, come on then, Tom. What do you know?
I mean, I've watched the original movie, you mean? I've watched making of it and stuff like that. So, I mean, I know they did, was it Rob Bottin and a bunch of those guys that put all that stuff together? And it was just...
A lot of it was actually
experimental
done by one chap.
Yeah.
A lot of it was done by one chap and he kept staying up to like midnight, 3 a.m., 4 a.m., all this.
Was that Rob or was it one of his guys? I can't remember now, but...
I think it was basically all handled by him specifically. One singular person was doing it all for all intents and purposes.
I mean, I like the thing, but I'm not like I know other friends who were like it's their big
thing.
Yeah. Was it Rob who worked on it? Then it was him. Yeah, I was gonna say. And a lot of that stuff was just experimental. I mean, some of it was shot in reverse, and it's just a lot of wires and randomness and
Crazy stuff.
crazy
Absolutely
stuff. Some
crazy
animatronic stuff that hadn't been. I mean, a lot of that stuff is brand
Yeah,
new at the time.
pioneers, basically.
Yeah.
A lot of it was pioneering stuff, but crazy times, crazy times.